You've brought us David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. And wow, this Goggins guy, he doesn't mess around. What was it about his story, his whole approach, that really jumped out at you?
You know, it's that thing where he doesn't just talk about tough stuff, he lives it. Like, takes this really rough upbringing, calls it his bad hand, and it's almost like he uses it to, I don't know, fuel himself, push further than most people even think about.
Yeah, and he doesn't try to make it prettier than it was, right? Just lays it all out there. Poverty, the abuse, the racism, it's heavy stuff. You could see how someone would get stuck there.
Absolutely. But that's where he gets interesting, right? He's like, confront that stuff. Don't just dwell on the bad stuff, but like, you got to acknowledge it to move through it, you know, use it to grow from even the painful stuff can be like weirdly where your strength comes from.
He even says, like, write it down. Your own bad hand, all the times you were hurting, felt insecure, messed up. Have you ever actually done that?
It's intense if you really do it. Think about a time you were just like completely defeated, bottoming out. How'd you get through that? That's what he's talking about. Those moments that force you to figure stuff out just to survive.
The one that stuck with me, man, that visual of his dad making him stare at himself in the dark before the beatings would start. Just awful.
And he was so young, too. It wasn't even just the physical stuff, you know, escaping with his mom and brother. But then it's more hardship, more struggling just to get by. You could see how someone would just give up, but not Goggins.
And then losing his stepdad so young, you almost wonder how anyone comes back from all that.
It's wild, right? He takes all the pain, and it becomes the thing that pushes him forward. Almost like he's saying, yeah, that's where I came from, but it doesn't get to decide where I'm going. Powerful for anybody who's been through some stuff, you know.
You can see how all that early stuff really shaped how he sees the world. Right. This whole turning pain into fuel thing, that's at the core of his calloused mind idea, isn't it?
Totally. Calloused mind. It's like building that resilience, you know, learning to handle being uncomfortable and then like going even further than you thought you could.
Oh, and he does not hold back. We're talking Hell Week with the SEALs, ultramarathons, even just like cleaning out restaurant grease traps at 3 a.m. It's like he looks for stuff that would break most people.
It's like he flips the script on suffering, right? Most people, it's all about avoiding the bad stuff. But him, he's like, that's where the good stuff is. Like, the more you can take, the tougher you get, the more you grow. You can say we're capable of way more than we think, but we got to be willing to get uncomfortable.
This whole taking souls thing really got me.
Yeah.
Pushing so hard you break the other guy. But like, sometimes that other guy is just you know, your own doubts.
Ever notice how fast we quit on stuff when it gets hard? Nah, not for me, too much. That's what he's calling out, right? Those little decisions where we pick the easy way out. Taking souls means doing the hard thing, even when it sucks, because that's where the reward is.
It's funny because he seems so, like, superhuman in his willpower, but even he talks about self-doubt, like getting cut from the basketball team back in high school.
Right. It's not that he doesn't feel it, but he doesn't let it run the show. That stuff happened. It fueled him to work harder, prove something to himself, you know.
And then there's that story, trying to run 100 miles with zero training, the pain, getting hurt. I can't even imagine pushing through that.
That one, to me, that's Goggins in a nutshell. It's not about being some kind of superhero. It's that we all got that toughness inside. He talks about picturing himself pushing through, saying, you're a machine. Every step makes you harder. It's all mental. That's how he does it.
So that calloused mind, that's huge for him. But it's more than just thinking, right? The guy's all about action, discipline, being ready for anything.
Huh.
Oh, yeah, the guy's all about the work, that's for sure. Planning out those races, every little thing. But then, like, the training on top of it is just nuts. I love that story about him using those Navy SEAL recruitment trips, like turning them into his own personal obstacle courses.
Dude, riding his bike across states to give a speech, then running an ultra on the weekend, doing push-ups while he's talking to people. It's like, walk the walk, right? You can find ways to challenge yourself everywhere. That's what I take from that.
And he doesn't pretend he's invincible either. Talks about his heart, all those surgeries, like, that's real.
Huge. It's not be Goggins, it's find what your best is, right?
Yeah.
Even with limitations, everyone's got them. He's not saying go run 100 miles on a whim. He's saying, what if you actually pushed instead of holding back?
That near-death thing, after that race in Hawaii, that hurt 100, first time on a trail, totally unprepared, pushed himself till his kidneys were messed up.
And still everyone's like, dude, stop. And he's refusing pain meds because he wants to feel every bit of it. That's our Goggins.
Hard to wrap your head around, that kind of drive. But it seems like after that, almost dying, That's when he figures out the forgiveness thing, letting go of all that anger from his past.
Totally. He's like, I don't have to be that kid who got beat, who dealt with all that crap. It's in his actions now, you know? And part of that is forgiving the people who messed him up. That's how he moves on.
Finding peace in the middle of all that, it's kind of wild. Accepting it all, but still pushing. That's where he finds it.
His way's not for everybody, that's for sure. But it makes you think, right? We all got our own bad hand stuff we're dealing with. What are we going to do with it? Maybe you don't got to run 100 miles, but what's one thing you could push a little harder on? What would your life look like if you actually embraced this calloused mind thing, even a little bit? Something to think about.